Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to the Ebbenflow podcast, episode 12. My name is Ben, and I have a guest with me. My guest today, his name is Derrik, and I've not really had any interactions with Derrik, to be honest. I've seen him in dualistic Unity calls for quite some time, probably maybe close to 2 years. But yeah, only just recently started talking to him when I had made a TikTok saying that I'm kind of sick of chasing enlightenment and like having high-minded, like into the weeds perspectives on reality, because you can you can certainly talk about spirituality and what it's like to be existence, the universe, and eternal. But you can only kind of do that for so long until you kind of just want to play video games. And that was the case for me one night. So I made a TikTok expressing like, man, I kind of just want to get back into Rocket League and maybe start playing Rainbow Six, because that is a video game that I've been interested in recently but haven't gotten into. And Derrik commented on my post saying, "Hey, let's run some Rainbow Six," and we did a couple times. And also the idea was tossed around of us doing a podcast together. So this is now the podcast. So this is my guest, Derrik. Would you like to introduce yourself and how you're feeling?
Yeah, Derek, father of two, 37 years old. Like Ben said, listening to DU for a couple of years now. It's hard to tell how long, but feels like eternity, if you will, but in a good way. Um, I've always loved listening to your stories on the calls and everything. You got the gift of storytelling, and I've always listened to your stories there. I wish I could have spoken more on those calls, but they never time out. So it's awesome that you have this medium that we can now connect with. And yeah, like you said, Rainbow Six. It's funny that you introed that way, because I was actually had a thought today of just how I could have been taking something I was doing more seriously. But I didn't want to. So I was actually setting up a bit of a, I think I told you yesterday, actually. I changed out the microwave, and I wanted to prank my wife and see if she'd notice when she got back from her little trip. And so to set up the prank properly, I put the old microwave in the box, and I was like getting it all packed up in the garage. So it was like exactly where it was left. So there's no evidence except for the changed microwave. And while I'm doing it, the microwave wasn't like fitting back in, even though they're the exact same microwave, just different color. Um, Sorry. But so it should have fit in the styrofoam packaging just fine. It should have fit like a glove, right? For some reason, it wasn't closing. So I actually took the time to like shave the styrofoam down so that it fit down so I could close the box properly. And while I'm doing this, I'm thinking, I have a lot of projects I could be doing right now. And I'm shaving styrofoam down, which then I have to clean up the mess and vacuum it all up. And, styrofoam just sticks to everything. And I'm like, this probably took me 15, 20 minutes longer than it needed to. But fuck it. Like, why do anything if I'm not going to just enjoy myself? So, um, yeah, anyways, that's kind of funny that you led the intro that way. I love that.
Yeah, but you were like, sure, you may have been like spending a lot of time cutting the styrofoam, but and the thought always comes in of like, no matter what you're doing, like, but maybe I should be doing something else. But at the same time, you have forever.
Yeah,
So why not get into the details? Why not cut the styrofoam in such a perfect way that it would be a flawless prank to your wife?
yeah,
Because it's just a lot more effort,
yeah,
but it's probably worth it. Could be worth it.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though, because even one of the corners wasn't sitting down properly, and so I didn't even cut it properly, but it was close enough that I could mash it down, and then I put some stuff on top. I'm like, yeah, this will be good enough. I've wasted too much time on this already, but hopefully for the sake of the prank, it works out. While I was doing that prank, I was also thinking how it would be so easy to, um, if I didn't have that mindset of doing it for fun, I could have done these projects, and as like if she didn't notice, I was realizing how upset somebody else or even myself in a different part of my life could have gotten. Like, oh, how dare you not notice this extra effort that I put in? I got all these projects done while you were gone, kind of thing. Um, but instead, I was like, but on the flip side, the same situation can be viewed as a prank and be fun and laugh about it, and I still got some projects done. So that's all just how you think about it.
Exactly, man. It's all perspective. And I well, actually what I'm seeing right now, sorry, this your camera, like I think it like blurred from when it first started. I don't know if you can
I
adjust it,
can't
but if not, that's fine.
go
Just
to, where's the buttons there? Where's that background thing? New to this app, more options.
it's
Visual
all
effects.
good.
Let's just take off. Yeah, I don't care if you see my background. There's a cat tree.
Nice.
We'll just do that. Does that work?
I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's more I don't know why I just like thought like maybe the viewers would want good quality, but it's really the conversation that is, what's more important. And I don't, people listen to audio versions of podcasts anyway, but
Yeah.
it's all good.
Is that
Oh,
better?
that's actually much better.
There we go. I shut the camera off and turned it back on.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's
Cool.
like that old kick, unplug it and plug it back.
The classic,
Technical. Yeah,
man.
classic.
So yeah, I guess maybe we can. I'll first of all, I appreciate you like telling me, saying that I'm like good at storytelling, because I don't know, I never like saw myself as someone who's good at articulating things, because I feel like I have a million thoughts in my head at once, and I can only words to get them down into words is it's like trying to smush a shit ton of information into a bottleneck. Um, but at the same time, that's only my perception of how I'm speaking, and how you're perceiving me speaking is something that I just can't uh, kind of conclude with accuracy what you're perceiving. I can only assume what you're perceiving about me.
Mhm.
But we talked about this last night while we were playing Rainbow Six, that you were going through something and you kind of wanted to bring it up. I don't know if you want to start with that
Yeah, I can.
or touch on it.
Yeah, I don't know how much about baby biology you know, but um, our 7-month-old was going through some feeding aversion. They is the technical term, I guess. Basically, she has associated eating with her bottle as a negative experience, and so even though she's hungry, she's starting to get those layers of I guess they'd be the initial layers of identity, basically some preferences that are overriding her biological needs. And she's going, well, fuck you, I don't want to eat this bottle. And I'm going, you need this. But yeah, so we she's been sick this weekend, and so she just sort of like was acting up even more about her feeding and stuff like that, because when you're sick, you don't the last thing you want to do is give up your preferences, like, right? So it's babies are very much like that, like you just can't reason with them, but they are very much like normal people. When you're put under stress, all of a sudden, well, no, I don't like this, and it's, yeah, you just can't shut that part of the brain off. So it ended up being like, I'll start at it would help probably, actually. I'll start with um, basically when babies come out, they've got, we've evolved to develop these certain muscle groups so that they have a very limited set of skills. Everything else sort of just flops around, but the one thing that one of the couple things they do is eat, and you can't overfeed a baby. They will be unconscious, sleeping, and they will eat until they're full. And essentially, like, you want to just fill their stomach up. They go back to sleep. They wake up. They poop. They might be awake for 10 minutes and then go back to sleep. There's not a lot going on when they're that young. But as they get older and the rest of their senses start developing, then she went through this phase, they all do, where the world is just like, they can see further, and there's all these distractions. So then they just are too distracted to eat. But then she'd get tired, because once they get tired, they get tired. And then that becomes the main priority. So now she's got two conflicting priorities. Like, well, you can't fall asleep very easily if you're hungry, because you're probably running on empty now, but you can't eat because you're too grouchy to eat. So I'd usually get her to sleep and then sleep feed her, because at least then she's out of the way. Basically, that was how I would, yeah. The best way to describe it is like, her budding personality is out of the way, and I'm just dealing with her biology. Like, they literally they'll eat until they're full, and then there's like a signal that goes to their brain that they stop. Not like us, where we have a gag reflex and everything. Like, they don't care. They're just going to eat until it's full. And as their stomach gets bigger, through medical science, we've tracked roughly how, the average of how much a baby should be able to eat. So, as a attentive and conscious parent that I try to be, I like it's pretty easy to read, the baby's cues, and get them before the point of no return, and it's going to be a fight. With my first child, we were with her all the time, and it was the easiest thing. We just fed her. It was the easiest thing. With number two, we just don't have the time to focus as much on her as fully. So then you miss the window by 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you're having a fight. And as I was doing it, so I'm not going to get into too many specifics, because I don't want to. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It is what it is. I didn't like hit my child or anything. Don't worry about that. But it was just, you'd like sort of try to shock her into realizing that, like, oh, there's a bottle in my mouth, because she got to the point where she was so mad she wouldn't even take a soother to calm herself down, and that's all she wanted, was a soother to go to sleep. So you'd rock them. That's why you pat them, whatever. Just change it up, get them to go like, oh, what's going on? Or I figured out that you could like blow in her face lightly, and babies go, what's that? And then all of a sudden she'd be like, oh, there's something in my mouth. So like that worked a couple of times. But then that stopped working. And so as she started, going like, no, you're tricking me here, kind of thing, she associated me with being a negative experience feeding her, and my wife could actually feed her just fine. I could feed her if I didn't miss that window, right? Like, I'd have to hit her before her preferences started kicking in and she started getting a grouchy baby. Anyway, so now fast forward, this was like when she was like 7 weeks old. Apparently, my wife was doing some research on it, and then she came to me with it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that actually times out. So for me, I was justifying it, going in my head. I remember not enjoying doing it. Obviously, I didn't enjoy my baby screaming. Like, the main concern for any parent when a baby's screaming, especially when it's your own, is to like, make sure it's okay, obviously. But the part of me that was going, I know what you need. Shut up and take this bottle and just eat the damn food and go to sleep, because my toddler, I'm on a ticking time bomb with my toddler, who will come in and reset the whole thing. Because like, I'm trying to give my wife a break, let her sleep. My toddler's like, unfortunately, sitting on the iPad or something, but she'll get distracted soon enough and come in and interrupt this whole thing. Now I'm back to square one with baby. So I know, as it was happening, it was like, this just sucks, really. But I'm thinking, like, you know what? She's too young. She's not going to remember any of this, and she'll be alive. And maybe it's just a phase. We get through this growth spurt, because they go through little growth spurts where, like, for a week they just suck, and it's like there's a lot going on, and then they balance out and they figure out, oh shoot, okay, I got, they got stuff to do on, and then they go, okay, I can eat. I can go back to doing this other stuff. None of this stuff is super new anymore. So they go through little phases where they have trouble, and this was just one of those phases. But yeah, so fast forward to this weekend, and she's feeling sick, and my wife and the toddler we were all actually going to go to take a family trip, 9-hour drive to the Kootenays to see some family. And the toddler got sick. Mom started getting sick a little bit too. I was like a little bit, but I usually just bounce back pretty quickly. Um, and then last, the baby gets sick, and I'm like, oh shoot. So the wife doesn't like driving that big of distances, especially with the kids by herself. So we really wanted to all go, but the closer it got to leaving, it was like, I don't think we're all going to be able to go. Like somebody's going to have to stay because this is not fair to like put our preferences to bring go as a family on this baby that's having trouble sleeping. Because like we had to like hold her to sleep and like oh as a last resort we could always like get her to sleep and then feed her because like she would pass out because she was tired and sick and whatever. Like we'd get a little bit of food in her, she'd pass out, but to keep her asleep, we just go back to sleep feeding her, which is unfortunate because we were trying to get her out of that stage. Um, there's a certain point in their development where like they can't stay awake long enough to eat enough, so you do end up sleep feeding them anyways. Um, and then since we're bottle feeding her, like you kind of have to like you know train them out of that again, get them used to something else. So and of course I know all that while I'm basically programming my baby with a sleep aversion unwittingly at the time. Anyways, so now my wife's going. We've decided that she's going to go with the toddler. We're loading up, and then she shows me with this research. She's like, "So this is called sleep aversion." I was just reading up on it, or feeding aversion, sorry. And then she like explains the symptoms, and of course I'm like, I know, of course. I like it clicked right away. I was like, yes, I did that. I know, shit. Um, and I kicked myself a little bit in the butt. I'm like, you know what, this, like, if regret, obviously, we all have regret and stuff. Um, but I really wanted to feel worse about it, I guess. Does that, if that makes sense? Like, I don't know. It was this
Can
weird
I
feeling I ended up
sorry,
having. Oh yeah, go
can I
for it.
ask you a question?
Yeah.
You causing, can you just clarify like how you caused the sleep aversion? Like you were using the bottle, or you were tricking her in with a bottle, or
Well, basically, as she starts getting preferences um and I was making feeding time not fun, that became a negative experience for her. And so she's like, so her brain, which doesn't have a lot going on anyways, because she hasn't developed all these different ideas as she's forming the neural pathways and stuff. And so this is what like this is uh we can go into so many different avenues with like brain chemistry and stuff, which applies to baby stuff. Is so cool. But basically, I was repeating a process that then went. This is one thing she sees when I'm feeding. It's not fun. It's not fun. So she doesn't want to do it, at least with me. But then it was bleeding over to with my wife as well. So basically, I just like with anything, when you're learning a new skill, you repeat it enough, it becomes your norm. So that's what I did. It's like it was a negative experience repeated, and with babies it doesn't take long, like a matter of a couple of days really, like because like I said, there's not a lot going on there. There's no dialogue and communication getting in the way. It's just, this is what's happening. Yeah, this sucks. um but yeah, so my wife hit me with that, and I'm like, fuck, of course. And I knew right away, and I even, it's like she wasn't mad about it. She was like, hey, this is what's going on. And she like took part of the blame too. She's like, she knew that she wasn't the best all the time either. But me, I'm going like, "Ah, yeah, no, shit." So I went through this whole like, it went by pretty quickly. Like obviously she left and I had to buckle down. Like I got to deal with this kid now for 4 days by myself here. And if it's going to be a fight, God, that's going to suck. And if I spend, the first day or two wallowing, going like, just regretting that I caused this situation on myself now, well, that's going to just suck too. So, but I also like, I wanted to feel worse. So I even tried like that night, some sick part of me was like, God, you should feel worse about damaging your child, basically, setting her up for this failure. But she's young enough that it's reversible. Like it was actually very easy to correct. But I had to be the one to change my attitude towards this situation because she's a baby. Um, I think part of me wanted to feel worse because I never did that with my first child. And so if I could do this to my second child, do I love her as much as my first child? So like there was this whole emotional thing. Um, but yeah, so I did feel bad. Obviously, I do feel bad. Um, but I sat there and was like, that's not going to help me right now. I got to change my attitude towards this and just go ham, making this as positive an experience as I can. And as it turned out, um, my wife being gone with the toddler, and now it's just me and my baby, no distractions. I can give her the attention she needs. She's sick anyways. And literally that first night, because they left in the afternoon, I just decided right there, I was like, I'm not going to fight you at all. I will rather put you to sleep and then feed you. I'll keep you alive. Put you to sleep, then feed you. So I was offering her the bottle, but as soon as she was going, no, I don't want this. I'm like, okay, fine. Here's your soother. Here's your soother. Go to sleep. And then 10 minutes later, take the bottle. And she go, oh, yeah, because she's not conscious anymore. Um, Literally the next day, like the next morning was easy. The next, like they're usually really good in the morning, and then as they get through the day, they run out of energy faster and it gets harder and harder. So yeah, the first two feedings were great. She was laughing, and all of a sudden, like a couple days later, not even, I haven't had to sleep feed her at all, and we haven't had any negativity. When it came close to being grumpy, I did give her pop in a soother, but that was the last time was like 2 3 feedings ago. So yeah, that was just the fun experience that I got to deal with. Interesting and not so fun, but I say fun because that's sort of my go-to. But anyway.
Well, I mean, you're saying that you like damaged your child, but like her behavior, like she's fundamentally different than your toddler. Like
Mhm.
I guess you didn't have as much problems with your toddler because that was just maybe her personality. But like with the new one, she can be, maybe she's just reacting differently to how you're in her environment.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny that you say that actually, because this goes to the whole brain chemistry thing that I like. It's fascinating to watch these little personalities develop because we all go through our lives and assuming our biology has a lot to do with our personalities. When I've been discovering it's the exact opposite. A lot of what babies turn into is a reflection of the environment that they're growing up in, um, which makes sense if you think about it. I don't know. I hate talking like I'm an authority on this because I have no PhD. Caveat here: there's none of this is none of the thing that I say is advice in any way. I don't have any degrees in this or studied it, but I have like come across things as I've grown up and a lot of personal observation inward on myself through the years and just watching my kids grow up essentially. Um, a lot of the things that like left-handedness, for instance, the science discovered that left-handedness was attached to this gene. Well, I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. If you pass a baby enough stuff to the items to their left hand, enough stuff, they're going to start using their left hand. Um, it could be as simple, and you don't realize what it is. It could be as simple as their favorite toy was always kept on that side, so they always rolled to that side and did that. Like, there's who knows what grabs their attention, but the environment that they're in, and there's only so much that babies can see. Like, they start seeing red before any other color, kind of thing. Like, there's certain things that they develop that they have proof through science. So if you just go to what they do develop, and then you throw in these things that attract their attention, and then you go on your phone and you just let the baby be distracted, you don't know what it's developing. But as somebody who's been very involved with what she's doing and almost always playing with my children and down there on their level and watching them where their eyes are going and just watching them learn the world for the first time, it's fascinating and beautiful to watch babies discover the world because it is everything so fresh. But while they're doing that, you see, oh, she's really favoring her right hand. Well, I'd rather her like develop for coordination's sake, develop both legs kind of thing. Like a kid walking up and down the stairs, then they do that stupid little stutter step, and everybody's like, oh, walk faster, crying out loud. Or at least switch legs up because they get stronger on one leg than the other. So I've done it for 3.5 years with my toddler, where once she did start communicating, I would be like, oh, why don't you try doing that with your left hand? Why don't you try doing that with this hand? And she doesn't matter, like just does it because there's no reason not to. So she just would try. And then, so my toddler, my 3.5-year-old, can throw a ball equally well with both hands. She feeds herself with both hands. She was doing um, this little magnet puzzle where you like have this magnet and you collect these balls and you sort them around. And so she does part way along, and then rather than like reaching across her body, she just transfers hands and keeps doing this puzzle with the other hand. And my wife was watching this. She's like, holy shit. And I don't think my wife realized how much I was involved in that. And I don't hate doing that. Whenever I do try to bring something like this up, and I'm like, well, yeah, we've been working on that. Like I've been working with her, like, because obviously she's just going to do what's comfortable. Like that's, our brains, as Ray on Dualistic Unity has said multiple times, and as you've probably come to start to realize, is like our brains just, you give them a problem, they're going to find the easiest way to do it. Our brain is. And it's the same for kids. So as a parent, I get to introduce those stressors and get them like to change or whatever, right? And it's a lot easier before they have a lot of ideas of what's right and wrong, and who's watching me, and why does this matter that I throw better with my left hand than my right hand? But it doesn't matter. So for my toddler, I would just like consciously, like when we were helping her with food, like I would pass her fork to the other hand. Like I would just alternate, and she would just whatever, it didn't matter. And as a result, she's extremely coordinated for a 3.5-year-old, and we talk to her all the time. She asks tons of questions, and we're usually pretty good at like answering them and not dismissing them. And we're very engaged with her. She communicates really well when she's comfortable. She started, obviously, like all toddlers do, getting to the age that like stranger danger and all this other stuff. And it was funny though, because we'd have family come over, and they'd be like, "Oh, why is she, so, shy around people? Shy around people? You got to get." It's like, no, she's shy around people she doesn't know, as you would be too. Like, come on now. Like, do you just go cartwheeling around the library? Like, no, you got to meet some friends and stuff. She doesn't know you guys. And they would just, but
Yeah.
meanwhile, me as the parent that's there, I'm like, I know exactly what she's thinking, pretty much. Like you can tell, kids kind of wear their thoughts on their sleeves. Like they'll just say everything. So um, you just got to
Well,
get.
there's a. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Go for it. I was just
Well,
gonna
there's
say
a.
you got to take the time to get to know them. That's all, and that's with anything. But go for it.
No, absolutely. I can only relate kind of to what you're saying with my niece. To just kind of go back on like, it's really cool to see babies discover the world. I remember I had one day I was at my sister's house, and my niece was like, she just turned 1 recently, and I was carrying my niece around my sister's backyard, and she was just like so enthralled with everything. And like we were walking by the shed, and she would just like point. She would do a lot of pointing. So I
Mhm.
would take her to wherever she was pointing, because that's it. I see that as intelligence expressing curiosity.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's cool to um like kind of provide for the curiosity, just like let them have at it, kind of. So she would like point towards the shed roof, and I would take her there, and then she would kind of just like brush her finger up against the shed roof just to like feel the texture. And it was just so trippy, because I feel like that's what you would do in a dream. Like you would just want to start exploring all the details of it. And it's just really cool to see another like human go through that stuff for the first time. Um but yeah, I kind of forget what else I was gonna say.
It's all good. Yeah. If at any time, if I'm rambling, feel free to interrupt me, and because yeah, like when it was funny, because when you were saying that how your storytelling, you feel like it's this mashed thing that you're trying to get out. Um, I feel that, man. It's like if I got this ball of yarn, and I know at the center of it is the place I wanted to get to, and I'm trying to tell you a story, but I start pulling these threads out, and it's like, if you want to, I could probably just pull one thread and it will eventually get the whole way. But if you want to backtrack, well, I don't know where the fuck that thread went. Like we're gonna have to dig through this pile of yarn to get this thing back to where a cohesive story shows up. I feel that.
Well,
So interrupt me if you need to, for sure.
yeah, all good. I think after that you were talking about um them like in like the presence of like strangers that kids will like kind of be shy. And it's, I mean, that is like that's, and you're right, like that's what you do, like in the presence of strangers, like you're not going to be acting in strangers the way that you act in front of like your closest friends, is because
Yeah.
like you've built up a layer
I just
of
got to pause you for a sec. I got a screamer.
yeah, no problem, man.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all good.
Be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was talking about my
Your niece.
niece, and how like kids tend to be shy amongst like strangers, because but it's funny that like, I don't know, we can like scold them almost like for being shy, because sometimes like my sister would have my niece over and she'd be like, yeah, how about, or can you tell Uncle Ben like the words that you learned recently? And she would just kind of like look away, and then my sister would be like, oh, you're being shy, but you know, not in like a way that's like, of course she's being shy because I don't see her that much, as I'm her uncle. I don't, you know, not around that much. So I get it. And that's kind of like she's developing that sense of self,
Mm-hmm.
because she doesn't want to, she has a sense of self when she's at home, but then when she's like in another environment, she starts thinking about that self, and that is probably where the shyness starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that brain looking for that comfort again. It's like, well, that's outside my comfort zone. I'll just stick to what I know. I've explored so far already. I'm really enjoying this because with your niece wanted to go over to the shed and stuff, and like you said, like yeah, that's a really fun phase, is when they start wanting to go places and they really cling to the person who's going to take them there. So as the fun uncle that I've always been, before I had my own kids, that's what I was always doing, was with the kids. I was going out and exploring and playing with them and doing their things. um and as they got older, they started to abuse that, I think. But also because like they weren't getting that at home. I came to realize later was they weren't getting that level of attention that kids crave, because they do, like you said, they want to explore, but they just can't quite do it yet. So they do need help, and then they get comfortable with something, and then they go, okay, like I'm good now. Like with your niece, with all the words, she like, well, she doesn't want to show Uncle Ben because she just maybe not comfortable with Uncle Ben yet. But yeah, my first child has been doing that a lot too. Like she's got quite the vocabulary on her, and uses the concepts and words like fairly well. But then you go to try to like show that off, I guess. And as a parent, you kind of want, like, look what my kid's doing, because as much as it is them, they are doing it, of course. Like it's a lot of it's on them. Um, but I've come to realize how much of it is on the parents and the environment that they provide for that growth. Because they are naturally curious beings. But once, like I was saying, once they get to a certain comfort level, they're like, okay, I'm just going to do this. But then they naturally start going like, well, this is kind of boring. I'm going to go explore this. And then we just have to be that safety net to help them. I was in that how do you say that? The analogy that I came up with in my head
And
was like, if you're
mental,
going to the gym and somebody just says, here, have at it, go use these machines, you might hurt yourself. Like there's a lot of it, like if it was some gym equipment that like had some weird pulleys on it, and like, oh, if you sit on it this way, it'll do this, and then you go throw a kid in there. When I was helping my second child develop her motor skills, and I learned from the first one what, the body's tolerance level could quite handle at that. Because you think that they're going to be this little marshmallow little thing, and it turns out babies are actually like a lot more resilient than you realize, and like flexible, and like, so when she started exploring her own movement, I would be like, oh yeah, no, like, and then start moving her arms around and getting her legs moving, and then like literally the next day or the next, not even a few hours later, she's already like moving her legs differently and like starting to roll around differently. I'm like, wow, like that was, yeah, like I put a little bit more attention into this, and she's doing all this stuff already. Like it's awesome. um and it's, yeah, it's fun to do, and then to be there when, like, my first kid and I, we still go on walks. It started out just to get out of the house, and I never used to be a walker. Like, I grew up in the woods, so I wasn't really like, if I have somewhere to go, yeah, I'll go walk there, but it was never just for leisure. But I started doing that with my toddler, first with the stroller, obviously, and just to give my wife a break, to be honest, get out of the house, like, again, go explore. And so I'd like show her bees and stuff, and she's like getting right down there, and like I was taking some pictures with my phone, and she's like wanted to use my phone and super curious. And then as she started getting older, she started getting like afraid of bugs. And I don't know where that came from, whether it was just that sense to like start protecting what she knows, like, oh, I don't know what that is, like, you know what I mean? Or if it was something she picked up from somebody that she might have seen be afraid of buggy. Like, you just never know where they get this stuff. They are sponges for sure. It's awesome to watch.
It's cool. Yeah, no, it's cool because you were saying, I like what you said, like when you were showing her certain like movements of the body, and then you wake up the next day and she's doing all sorts of new movements with her legs. It's
Mhm.
like it's almost like a little machine that has a coin slot, and the coins that you put into it are things that you show the baby, and then they are their own machines, so that they like combine that with everything else that was in their environment for that day. And since babies are so young, and their life is so short, like they've only existed for such a short period of time, that literally like their brains are in like overdrive
Mm.
in terms of how many things they're paying attention to.
Yep.
So they're like sponges, and what they're combining what you show them with everything else that they're paying attention to, and then they come up with all these new things, and then they
Yeah.
surprise you the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so for that gym analogy, it's like if you went in there, like, yeah, you could probably get a workout in, and you would go move the equipment and be like, okay, this is great, this stuff moves like this. But if you had somebody come in and help you and spot you from the very beginning, and go like, literally, this is how you like keep your shoulders like this, or you can move like this, whatever, and it'll be more effective. Now put that with like everything, like moving fingers. Like, so when I'm like cuddling with her and she's like falling asleep, I'll be like playing with her fingers and like moving stuff around and like just stretching her body out and stuff like that, and just getting her used to those nerve endings. And then you'll see them like watching their fingers, and you're like, wow, like they're just like, wow, I can do that, right? Like they once you've drawn attention to that, like, you can do this equipment over here too, they start going like you said, like they don't have a lot else going on, and they're just laying there going, wow, this is so cool. Um, it gives you an appreciation for the little things in your own life too, and to just remember, like you can learn anything new if you just get out of your way, get your preferences out of the way, and then just start putting in the reps. Like, that's all they're doing. Like, they're just laying there doing that. So like we say, it's happens so fast, and it does. For kids, they accelerate the first couple of years, like the growth chart or whatever. It's a fast curve because, yeah, they don't have anything else to do. But if we put the same level of attention into it, and we had nothing else to do but lay there for hours at a time moving our finger, we'd be pretty good at moving our finger by the end of the day, right? um yeah. And so, like, I've been able to apply that into my own life for things like, I was telling you yesterday how I learned to solve the Rubik's cube, and then like, and getting back into skateboarding. At first, it was funny because we've got some like neighbors that like kids and stuff, whatever. Like, our block is used to be really old people, and then it started to have like some younger families in it, and they're just a little bit older than my first. So we've been like, my 3-year-old, she loves going outside. We're outside like almost all the time if we can. Um, and so like we're playing in the front yard, and I'm like, well, shit, I might as well like pull out the skateboard. I still got it. Like, I'm not gonna go. She's doing something and she's really not interacting with me. She's happy I'm nearby, but like you end up with a lot of times when like if you're on something super engaging like a screen or something, they're gonna want to come see it. But if you're just watching them, eventually they'll just get distracted. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna do something just nearby. So I started putting my skateboard on again, and oh man, I was rusty. Holy shit. And my muscles were just like got tired so fast. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep at it. I'm gonna practice my ollies. I would do like that was pretty much the only trick I could do as a kid, anyways. But like even just doing a handful of ollies, like I did like 3 or 4 ollies, my legs were so tired. And then I was like, well, I'm just gonna keep at it. Like what else? Like why not? Why not? And then yeah, I started like uh videotaping myself ollieing over some of her little kid toys. Like she got like one of those little horses that you push around, and I was like ollieing over that. And I'm like, sweet, and then trying to do the kickflip. But yeah, just that attention and time into a new skill. It's kids are inspiring when you get on their level and really pay attention to them. Um, yeah, which not a lot of people take the time to do. Not that I'm trying to pop myself up, but it's something we could all just take the time and be
I
attentive, I guess. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, the how you're describing, like they don't have anything else going on, so the only thing that their attention can be on is like what they're doing. Like the example I thought of is I'm trying to learn how to produce electronic music, and that is such a large like rabbit hole to get into, and it goes very deep. And so I'm I have my laptop out and I'm like looking at YouTube videos like how to make a bass groove for a house track. And it's the guy's going into incredible detail on like the synthesizer. And I mean, I just have a lot of potential for thoughts to come up like, okay, but I have like, I don't know, my bills to pay. Or what am I gonna do at work tomorrow? Or should I should probably text my friend or something like how they're doing. So there's all these considerations as an adult that makes it a kind of hard to put all of your attention into one thing. And then when you're a kid, when even before you're a kid, like you don't have those considerations. Like the only thing you're considering is like where you are now. And so I think it's a really interesting process how we go through life and we're considering more and more um things to do in our reality. I'm wondering like kind of what's the trade-off of it. So we have the ability to consider a lot more in life, but that has the potential for all those considerations to come flooding into your awareness when you're trying to focus on one thing. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kit. I had a thought actually there just at the end. Shit. Um, damn it. Damn it. It was a good one.
Uh,
Kids.
all good.
Potential, attention, time, focus. Mm.
Considerations.
Yeah, like you just have all these places that you could take this unlimited potential, and then we go like where like you almost get bogged down with how much there is to do, and then you go, well, maybe I will just like stick with this, and then you get really comfortable with that and be like, well, I'm good at this. I can't let this go now. Like I should be doing this stuff. I don't know. But then yeah, like when you were saying how like the distraction from like the bills and like just takes your attention away from what you're when you're trying to learn something new, and I think that a lot of that like comes to even just how like when we're kids, our parents are trying to show us off like, oh, tell Uncle Ben how many words you know. It's like, well, why do I need to jump? Like I know the words, it's fine. Why do I need to jump these hoops? And then you get conditioned into jumping these hoops as like to get the praise from your like the people around you. Like that's the one thing that's also kind of interesting with kids. It's like they just want your attention. Like they want somebody to see them. They want that engagement. And I remember as a kid talking a lot for one thing, being called annoying, and just, but always like, as I would never have considered myself annoying until I was old enough to be told that I was annoying. You know what I mean? Like, and now if somebody said, "What were you like as a kid?" I'd be like, "Oh, I was annoying." Like, but why would I think that when as a kid I was just damn curious, talked a lot, asked a lot of questions, and then that was became annoying for people. And then I learned to be quiet. And, um, that's one thing that I'm definitely trying to not do with my kids is, or any like, not just my kids, but like, okay, when I go to like, we go to it's like a rec center, the YMCA. Do you have the, yeah, of course you have a YMCA in
Yeah,
the
we got wise.
YMCA. But yeah, so they have like these programs and stuff for going there with toddlers. And so I've had like random ass kids just come sit on my lap. I've like, they just see how much I'm engaged with my own kid, and they're like, I want some of that. And they come over and they start engaging with me to the point where they're like, they don't even care about my kid. They're just like, I want this guy. He's gonna play with me and engage with me the way I want, and he's gonna play out the story that I'm doing. Like, cause it's funny because they want you to play the certain way. It's like you've got this story in their head, and then they're playing out whatever. They've got their characters as they start using like dolls and stuff and figures, to represent different things in their lives. Because that's a lot of kids process their world through play. When they see a new situation, um, yeah, like if they've got a toy that's anywhere close to that, or they'll just make it up, and then they'll start acting out that scenario that they saw earlier. Like we I can't remember what happened previously, but I think it was like the next day, basically. My toddler was like playing with something, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And I don't even know what she was like. I don't know what the scenario was that her dolls did, but she was just acting out the act of the mom and the daughter saying like, "I'm so proud of you and I love you." And it's like, oh, that's like the most adorable thing ever. But as they start getting like this idea of autonomy, and they know that they can have what they want, kind of thing. If you don't play in their story the way they want their story to be played, they can get pretty grouchy. And I think that's where a lot of kids lose the adults that play with them, because they start getting really bossy with their games. And then you're like, well, fuck, I'm not going to play with you then. Fine. If you're not going to play the way I want to play, I'm not going to play with you then. You're being annoying. Go play by yourself then. Whereas, like me, what I remember as a kid, not being a bossy kid and wanting to play, but I mean, I was like, I think I did demand a lot of attention, and I know that I didn't get it. Not that it was a good thing or a bad thing, but as a result, I give a lot of attention to like my nephews and nieces, and like I said, I'm the favorite uncle, and I'm always playing with them down on their level. Um, the adults in my life, I think, gave me the rap of like being less responsible as a result, even though like I still got a good job and I did all like, worked hard and everything like that. But I just took things a lot less seriously, and I played with the kids a lot. Um, but yeah, having like with nephews and nieces is one thing. Like you see a certain little bit of a window and you play with them, and then watching like your own kid, because thankfully they don't want that level of attention all the time. Um, like nephews and nieces, like they only see you so often. It's like, oh, Uncle Ben's playing with me. I'm gonna, yeah, and then they take up like the whole hour that you're visiting your family. It's like, oh shit, I was with the kid the whole time. I feel kind of bad. But the kids love it. But then when you have your own kid, like they're like, well, yeah, okay, it's just dad. Like it's fine. But then so you get to sort of watch it from a little bit of a different perspective, uh, and watching them process their environment through play. And it's like, well, why can't we all just process our environment through play? I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I sort of trailed off, but
No, it's all good. I love that the kids, like, they are geniuses. I mean, they use their own imagination for their play. Like I remember when I was a kid, me and my best friend would we literally called it pretend game. And we played it for as long as I can remember, probably from like 3 until 7 or 8 or something, where we just came up with this like massive game, and it was so detailed. And you would like go through different levels, and you would fight like robot pirates on certain levels, and your sword would be a stick that we found in the woods, and like there was like another level where you had to make like a certain potion in order to turn into a creature. And for that potion, like we were just going through our parents' garages and putting like random fluids into like a milk gallon, and like we're like, yes, this is the elixir of growth. And it's just so cool to remember. Like, I'm so, part of me is so glad that I was like probably the last generation to grow up like playing outside without the distraction of like the smartphone or the tablet. So it's first of all, I'm very interested in how this generation, like my niece and your daughters, will their relationship to technology will be in comparison to ours. But even so, like between me and you, like I'm 27, so I was like the tail end, but like you were further back. Like you probably didn't get. I got my first phone in 6th grade, so it was probably like maybe a little bit later for you.
I didn't get my first phone until I bought it myself, actually, which was just after I graduated. I think, yeah, I started working at Walmart and I got a cell phone shortly after. But it was like, um, yeah, like the internet wasn't a thing when I was a kid either. Like I remember YouTube becoming cool, and like I only went to, I was homeschooled for a lot, and I only went to grade 10, 11, and 12 in high school. I did like grades, kindergarten, grade 1, and then we got pulled out for grade 2. My parents decided to homeschool us. But then, long story, probably for another podcast episode, honestly, would be that one would be a long story. But I decided at a certain point when in my teens, I was like, I should probably go get my grade 12 education. Um, and so I actually ended up holding myself back a year because of like how far back I was in the homeschooling. Realistically, I was probably further back than that, but I was like, I'll figure out that rest. And yeah, so I went to high school for 10, 11, and 12. So I had a very different like high school environment than most people. Otherwise, I probably would have got a phone sooner, but it was just like it wasn't a priority for me. And then after I got out of school, it's like, uh, but yeah, my one friend who was more into like, I did have a couple of friends. I wasn't a complete loser. He got onto the YouTube, and when the internet was starting to be cool, and like we were always wanting to like make these videos, and he actually had a camcorder, like VHS recorder, and then he had a way to, I think he had a way to get it onto digital copy. Like we could have made YouTube videos, but I think that was a little bit more effort than either of us really wanted to put into it. Um, but yeah, like the technology was like way different, and then it was just because we were used to being outside. It's like we started incorporating the technology outside, like making those crazy videos and stuff. Um, yeah, nowadays, like my this is actually, it's funny that you bring up technology with the kids. So I was at work when my young older one was, oh shit, how old is she? She's maybe 2 years old. Um, and I get this phone call from my wife, and like I've got her in my emergency contacts and whatever. And I answer the phone, and it's my toddler, and I'm like, what the hell? And I think mom was like in the shower or something. Like she wasn't even nearby. It wasn't like she like, here, call dad, talk to him. At that point, she wasn't really like talking to me yet, and my wife's phone was locked. So somehow she figured out how to get into like emergency calls, like because you know how on you can get in and do like whatever. And she got to the contact. It's not the first button you press, let's just put it that way. And somehow she called me, and then she repeated it like 2 more times. Like my wife had to just stop leaving her phone anywhere that could be reached by a toddler. um it's fascinating how quickly they pick it up and how intuitive it is. The trick for sure is balancing that with getting outside and getting some exercise so that we don't have a generation of, let's plug into this machine for sure. And yeah, a lot of it again is on obviously on the parents because they're creating the environment. We've been bad sometimes where we're like, okay, here, just take the iPad, like we need to do this, whatever. Like, so my 3.5-year-old does have access to an iPad, but we don't really restrict it that often. Um, and so it's never been like a treat, I guess. So it's never, when it is time to shut off, we're like, okay, after this show, like we're shutting it off. We like make sure we give her a bit of a warning, and then she like, 'cause that's a big thing with kids. If you just take something away and unexpectedly, they don't have the same concept of time we do. So they go, what the fuck? That was my whole world right now, and you just shattered it, and I was doing this thing. Um, Whereas if you like at least give them a little bit of a heads up, you don't have to actually commit to the 2 minutes. They don't know what fucking 2 minutes is, but you give them some warning, like, okay, after this show, we're gonna, go do something else. And she's like, because we didn't make it a reward thing, for the most part, she's been like really good with electronics and stuff. And then she goes and plays with her other toys, or we go outside or whatever. But yeah, a lot of that is on the parents creating the environment rather than be like, oh, well, she's distracted, I'm gonna go on my social media and you know post these stories on Instagram kind of thing, and or read this on TikTok. And I'm guilty of it too, for sure. I take those mental checkout breaks. There's only so long you can deal with a toddler before you have to like have an adult conversation. um but yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see where the next generation goes, for sure. I think i think we can do, like, with people like you and me and the rest of the DU community out there, being conscious of what we're feeding into that next generation, because that's a big part of it too. Is we see it in ourselves and go like, "Oh, we got to do something better, or whatever, different, better." You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that is coming to a head, and people are like, "Wow, the world's fucked up. What should we do about this?" And I hope that we see how bad we've. I hate saying bad, but how we could have done better with previous generations too. And you and I are dealing with the baggage and sorting through the baggage that came with. Um, and I think, from what I've seen, anyways, at least in the people that I like pay attention to, there is definitely a shift in parenting style if you know where to look, and it is getting easier to find. Like even at the Y, there's like these toddler programs that are completely free and with like safe environments to like have the kids interact. That isn't some team sport that's teaching them to push each other around, like, without making it a competition. There is places to like do this stuff. It's just not as available as people realize, I guess. Yeah, it's not advertised very well yet, I guess. um but it's out there and it's growing.
Yeah. I think like this, because I tend to want to use the words good and bad too. But as you're speaking, I'm like, I think maybe a way to put it is like it's a spectrum of responsibility,
Mhm.
and maybe the more of like the collective society is more towards the irresponsible end of it. Like you were at the Y, and the other kids were coming up to you because they saw how much attention you were giving your daughter, and maybe it's because their parents are doing the second we go out, I'm on like Instagram, I'm on my phone all the time, and I'm not giving my attention towards my kid. But like you have the awareness to recognize how important it is to give your attention to your daughter and balance it between being on a phone and then being like present with your kids. And like you were kind of talking about the DU community as well. And I mean, honestly, I really like admire how Ray has raised his daughter. I've interacted with her in person, and dude, it's crazy. She was 15 when I was talking to her, and she was just like telling a story about, like, I don't know, her friends or whatever were um just being irresponsible and like caught up in their judgments. And I'm just like, she's like saying that, and I'm like, are you 15 or 30? Because having like that environment, and you know I'm just using Ray as an example, but the environment where your parent has like the awareness of what you actually are, which is like not the idea of you, I feel like it just accelerates your 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 ego development and like your maturity, because those thoughts that she was having at 15 are like the thoughts that I didn't know were possible to have until I was like 25. So yeah, I mean, it's cool to there's definitely a shift happening and how we're raising our kids, and um just the amount of like how many of us are recognizing that we are responsible for our own existence, because we're in an environment now where irresponsibility is so rampant that we don't even know that we're being irresponsible. Like that's how far lost we are into our connection with reality, which is like that there is no separation at all, but we see ourselves as separate so we can be irresponsible. Like people have views on the world like, oh, I'm gonna be dead in 50 years anyway. Like none of this shit I do matters. I can litter, not realizing that they are their kids and other people's kids too that will inherit the world with litter in it, and with the the consequences of your irresponsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's one thing for sure. That again, we can just teach the next generation is that level, like you were saying, that level of responsibility. It's funny that you bring up the litter thing. I remember a stage in my life, honestly, where I'm pretty sure I threw garbage straight out my window, like to eating fast food in the car and just like I'm not going to see it again. And I remember doing it actually a couple of times, but then I think I was like, oh, wait, like, who the fuck's going to pick that up? That's kind of mean. And so I didn't do it. Like, it wasn't a habit, but I was going through a phase where I was like, whatever, I'm not going to see it again. Um, but now it's like, now I take my daughter for walks to the beach and stuff, and I'm like picking up the glass and like cleaning up the beach, and then we go the next time and it's still clean, or there might be like a little bit extra, but like for the most part, um, yeah, like if nobody else is gonna do it, oh, fuck, I'm gonna do it. We're using it. And so my daughter, like I was getting her to point out garbage, and we were like collecting garbage and stuff. Like, and sometimes I forget a garbage bag. I'm like, shit, remind me to bring a little shopping bag and we can throw some garbage. And but she actually did remember at least one time, anyways. Like she's like, oh yeah, don't forget the bag, kind of thing. We went and picked up some garbage. So it's yeah, definitely teaching that responsibility. I don't follow like the news as much and stuff. And then my wife will bring me something and I'm just like, oh wow, the world is kind of fucked up. But like the piece of it that I'm seeing, uh, at least I'm hopeful for, anyways. Let's just put it that way. Like I know there is fucked up shit out there, um, but I'm hopeful. Yeah, if as long as we keep teaching the responsibility to those around us, and that starts with self responsibility, of course. Like, yeah, be the change you want to see because, well, it is you, anyways, right? So,
That exactly. And like, yeah, you I know what you mean. Like you use the word teaching, and part of me is like, well, you can't teach responsibility to anyone. Like it has to be, I mean, you can just be the example of it. And if they are like at that point in their lives where they're willing to see the responsibility, they can take it for themselves. But a lot of people will see you being responsible for your existence, and like it'll threaten them because they're holding on to this limiting idea of themselves, and like having ultimate responsibility of your existence has to go through you like recognizing what your ego is there for, which is just to experience, because it's necessary in order to have that observer and observed relationship. But as long as you're seeing yourself as the observer, you're not really taking your responsibility as the observed as well. Like you are the environment just as much as like you're completely like inseparable from the moment and from your environment.
yeah, I guess, yeah, teaching only takes you so far for sure. And then it has to be like just lead by example, and hopefully they'll. And a big part of that with responsibility has to be some consequence, and they have to. Which as adults we see these huge consequences, and they're earth shattering and whatever, and then we're like, well, shit, I don't want to take responsibility, obviously. But I think for the next generation, I'll go back to the kid examples because it's what I've been dealing with for the last 3.5 years, and it's fresher in my mind. But even for something um, like my some kids that I've seen, I don't know who's going to be watching this, so I don't want to obviously do too much examples of some kids that I have seen just go around and make a mess, and then they go, and I've had like this actual happen. Like they'll then 5 minutes later they see a toy that they want to play with, and then they come to me and ask, "Where's all the pieces for this? I can't find it." It's like they're probably here somewhere. You literally just knocked everything off the shelf, so it's probably here. Like this is what you did. And then I saw like my own kid starting to mimic that behavior because she saw the other kids knocking things off the shelves just willy nilly. I'm like, hey, like when you go to play with these toys, you're not going to be able to find what you're looking for because look at this mess you've made. And it actually did end up happening where it was like the playroom wasn't too messy. But she actually was like, oh, it's like a little bit of messy. And then she was like looking for the parts for something, whatever. And she ended up like, I ended up helping her find what she needed to get her game going. But you could tell that she realized, oh, like if I didn't make, or if it wasn't such a mess, maybe she didn't realize it was her that was making the mess yet. But um, as at least it's a step anyway. She's starting to see like, oh, if this place wasn't so messy, it would be easier to do what I want to do. Um, so yeah, that consequence and responsibility thing. Consequences are tough to teach though, because like they are so personal. Like I can tell you all day till I'm blue in the face, this is gonna suck for you. But until you do it, it's not gonna suck for you. Um, and that's a tricky one because yeah, you get accused of being a helicopter parent pretty quickly when you stop them from having any consequences. Um, but at the same time, you got to remember she's only 3, and then as they get older, it's like okay, well, yeah, and a lot of that comes down to like empathy, really. Um, Trying to remember what it was like for me when my whole world was this, and somebody said no. It's like shit. So, um, yeah, it's a fun one, and it's one that changes every day or week to week as they get older, and yeah, it keeps you interested for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a interesting like sensitivity of do you want to warn your kids about something that's going to suck, or do you just want them to experience it themselves?
And then put the band-aid on after and say, hey, maybe next time watch where your feet are going. But then they're kids and they got lots going on. My toddler has tripped a number of times on paper. They just grow so fast. I've watched literally within a matter of days her head from being able to hit the table to like not being able to hit the table to like I swear 2 days later she was skimming it. I'm like, holy shit, they grow so fast. And with that comes like clumsiness. And so she's tripped a number of times on the asphalt. Um, and the more times she's done it, it's like, well, your hands will get tougher. Like this is gonna happen. Like you just got to pay attention to where your feet going and stuff like that. So it's not hard to pick them back up, and they are resilient. Um, and as long as you're paying attention enough, it's not hard to be a safety net either. That's the one thing that bugs me more than anything. I think when I'm talking to other parents from mostly my family, really, um, accusing me of being a helicopter parent or they just like to kids should be off doing their thing while the adults do their thing kind of thing. It's like, no, you don't even realize like if you're they'll like I was saying with the gym equipment, like if somebody's there to spot you, you're not going to hurt yourself as much. Yeah, you're still going to stress your muscles out and you're going to get the exercise, but like being there to catch them before it's an injury that's going to stop them from doing it again, like yeah, they're still going to get hurt, but I caught her before it was a face plant. Like now she's just hit her hands. You know what I mean? Um, that's huge, but you got to be paying attention. And I know a lot of people in my life don't pay attention to their kids, as much as I would. Not that it's better or worse, it just is what it is, but you're going to reap what you sow. Um, yeah, it's interesting to watch for sure. Because sometimes I forget that my kid's only 3.5. Like there's kids 2 and 3 times her age that I'm like, wow, this person's still afraid of doing this, and you're already like just going gung ho at it because you've been testing your limits and growing your confidence with me there to catch you if needed, and then like now you're doing all this stuff, and it's like, and then using all these bigger words because of all like that, I haven't sugarcoated too much as far as like when questions go. So yeah, it's very easy to forget because they are so damn intelligent, and the more you give them for tools to communicate with, gosh, kids will surprise you. um and it doesn't have to be like a 5 and 6 and 7 year old. Like I said, this 3.5 year old I've got running around, man, it's easy to forget that she's only 3.5. That's for sure.
Wow. I mean, yeah, like the it's just that like intelligence that is more attentive to the moment, and there's just
Yeah,
not so much story
yeah, they don't
going
filter
on.
anything. Like, this is what I'm seeing right now, and then you're like, yeah, right
It's
there.
it's like your gym example. Yeah, if you have a spotter, like you're still gonna strain your muscles because you're still working them out, but it's not like you're gonna drop a barbell on your chest.
Yeah.
Like not that kind of injury. It's like the the discomfort of having strained your muscles, so you can go back and train them again harder, and then but you just rest in
Hmm.
between. I think it's really cool that like you can you experience like weakness by lifting weights, but you're not actually that's not actually what's happening. Like you're getting stronger even though it's seeming like you're weak. And it's like kind of the same thing with going into anything new, like with your with your skateboarding. Like you haven't done that in a while, and then like your legs, it kind of showed you how uh I want to say rusty you were because your legs were getting like weak. But it's just like you're now paying attention to the state of your body and its relationship to skateboarding. I feel the same way. I do slacklining.
Oh, nice.
Slacklining is it's really fun. And I did it a lot last year, and then it became winter, so I didn't go back outside. And then the first time I did it again this year, like I was like really shaky on the line, and it's just because I was rusty on it, and my body had to readjust to that feeling of being on a slack line. And I could have had the option to judge myself. I could have been like, God, like I can't. How come I'm not getting it as smooth like right now?
Mm.
But I mean, for me, it was obvious to see that it's been almost a year since I've been on the line, so it's like it didn't make sense to judge myself.
Yeah.
And I just knew I just had to keep getting on the line. And my brain, as long as I'm paying attention, the brain is so incredible because it's self-refining and it adjusts to whatever its attention is on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then taking charge of those fine motor skills and really, um, it's easy to forget how much stuff we put onto autopilot when it comes to our movements. And then you start doing something like skateboarding again or slacklining after a year, and it's like, oh shit. Because like it's not like my legs weren't in shape. Like I still, go for walks and ride. We've started riding bikes around and stuff. Um, like my legs are fine. I play hockey. I'm a goalie, so like my legs aren't out of shape. But then to skateboard, it was just that certain muscle groups, and it was just like, what the hell? This is exhausting. Um, but yeah, and then like to just, yeah, that mind body connection. We could start diving down that rabbit hole really easily. I have lots of thoughts on that too. uh,
Yeah, well, we can. maybe because it is like kind of late for me,
Yeah, no,
might
no
get
worries.
to wrapping up, but I mean, we definitely are welcome back as a guest too, because I feel like we could dive into a lot of things. I feel like we got into the kids
I'm glad we
realm.
kept on one track for sure. It's nice that way, but like I could see the rabbit holes as we were going past them. I'm like, oh, if I go too much into the way I was raised, he's gonna. All you got to do is ask one question, and I'm like, God. And then on the other side with the mind body connection, like I could give you a quick example just to wrap it up. To like a
Yeah,
spoiler
go.
alert. So I had braces late in my life because I couldn't afford them. I grew up not well off. We were poor. Let's just say it. Was poor. We were poor. So when I got a job that I could afford braces, I used to have like crooked teeth, and now they're like halfway decent. Spent $6,000 on them on my own hard-earned money. But the orthodontist said, yeah, and like kids and teens, this kind of work would probably take about 2.5 years for an adult because everything's firmed up a bit. He's thinking like more 5 or 6. I'm like, oh, great, I got 5. So in my head, I'm like, fuck that, I can do this in 2 years. I kid you not. I mean, yeah, there's the physical adjustment with all the metal in my face, but for me, that was just it was just a tool to be used. It was really the work came down to my brain. I remember willing my teeth to shift. It helped that I was working night shift at the time because I'd go like get an adjustment and then like take some painkillers and go to bed. And I'd go to bed with the attention on my teeth because obviously they're sore after an adjustment. And going like shift. I'm just willing them to shift, and then I'd fall asleep willing them to shift. And then like my teeth shifted so fast. I was done in just over 2 years, but for every adjustment, he's like, they're not loose. He's like, with this much movement this quickly, my orthodontist was actually flabbergasted. He's like, I don't know how you're doing this. He's like, but your teeth have shifted more than I usually see in an adult, and they're not loose. If I usually see this much movement, I'm worried, but none of your teeth are loose. I'm like, well, I've been willing them to shift and then tighten up. And he's like, seriously? I mean, yeah. I'm consciously willing my teeth to shift into place. And he's like, I'm going to tell all my patients to do that because that's amazing. And yeah, that's just my quick little nutshell story of mind over matter. Because once you start really paying attention to your body, and yeah, it's cool what you can do. Uh, Jesus even said the work side, whatever. But you know the quote. You guys will go on to do greater things than me. That whole walking on water thing, that's only the tip of the iceberg, as it were. But it starts with your own body and then realizing that your body is everything. And then you just, yeah, anyways, there's the rabbit
Oh,
hole.
dude, that was awesome. Yeah, and it starts with your perception of yourself. I mean, as long as your body's it's malleable. It's a very large percentage of water, so you can really will to shape it however you so choose. And obviously that's very evident in people who go to the gym and work out a lot. They've sculpted their bodies in ways that they will it with their own mind. Every time they decide to go to the gym and work out that day, their
Mm-hmm.
body's changing. And it's same thing with your teeth.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to will your teeth to move, like, I mean, it sounds like it could be like some woo woo magic type shit, but that's if, again, you're limiting yourself to you thinking your teeth are what you think they are. Like, the idea of your teeth is not the reality of your
Yeah.
teeth.
Yeah. Why shouldn't I have control over my, or influence, I should say? Because really, I guess if you got to the level of control, things would be happening real quickly. Because time's just a matter of perception, anyways. But if with this limited human meat suit that we've got, let's just stick with influence. And when you start influencing the cells in your body and taking a little bit more direct involvement in that, yeah, because I mean, like, I could be full of shit. It could be like that 2 years could have been a fluke coincidence, and it was very self-validating to have a medical professional be like, holy shit, that was kind of cool. But then when I tell the story, it's like, like, well, maybe you're just lucky, Derek. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't usually tell that story to anybody who's not open-minded about the whole mind over body thing. But I mean, hell, I've told that story to my own family, and they grew up with me with with the spiritual community and stuff that we were on, like, whatever. And even they just like, oh yeah, yeah. And then I don't see them applying any of the things that they say that they do. It's like, oh my God, you guys, like, there's so much more you can do when you stop getting in your own way, because really that's what it is. Like that's what it is. Like we tell ourselves that I don't have control over the growth of my teeth or the movement of my teeth or whatever, but that's just something that we've come to accept. Like, oh yeah, teeth just grow over time and you're stuck with what you got, and then you can throw some metal in your face and whatever. But like, why not? Like the brain's doing everything anyways. Like every function in your body is done by your brain, whether you realize it or not. So taking control of that and starting to really pay attention to the processes that are going on in your body. Yeah, it's a fun rabbit hole.
Exactly, man. We'll have to get into another episode. There's so many I also saw the tributaries off the main river that we could have taken. But yeah, it's 12:30 a.m. where I am, so yep. I gotta go to bed.
No worries, man. I appreciate
Derrik, where can do you want to plug any social media handles? Or
you know what? It's funny you say that, because I don't have any social media handles, but I was thinking that I wanted to be like I jump in and out of the Discord lounge every once in a while on the DU community server there. And I just don't advertise that I'm in there. And I thought that I could start like actually turning on my camera and being like discussions with Demetrius in Discord or something like that, you know what I mean? Because I love alliteration, so throwing in the DDDD or like Discord. I was looking up the meanings of like discourse is to like talk with authority on something, and I'm like, well, I mean, like I feel like I know stuff. Like that's the whole thing with having to have credentials and bullshit and everybody wanting to know where you got the information from. It's like, fuck that. I'm going to talk with authority on stuff. I know this stuff. So my first initial thought was like discourse with Demetrius in Discord. And then I looked up the meaning of discourse just to make sure I was using it right. And I'm like, and it's, talking with authority on a topic is like the second meaning of discourse. I'm like, I could do that. Or we could just be a discussion with Demetrius in Discord, or a disagreement, or you never know. But that's probably the only place that I'll be, is hanging out in Discord. But I don't have a schedule because I deal with 2 kids. So it'll be ninja time. So I'll just jump in, and I'm there.
Nice. All right. Well, I mean, you have a handle. So
Demetrius 1332. That's me.
Yes. In the dualistic unity, just actually Discord in general.
Yeah. So in general and gaming, and yeah, that's it.
Yep. I got you, man.
Cool, man.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being on my podcast, man. I hope to have you back. It was a great chat.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
Can't wait to play some Siege again.
Yes, sir. We will be running Siege soon after. Probably, I don't know, soon. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.